Okay, nothing would be complete in any sense of the word with the greatest influence on anything that I ever done, and that's the Bethel Baptist Church up there. That was our social area. That was everything. The hell was very present in everything. They preached on hell. You don't read that much anymore. And it was BYPU. We go every Friday night. We had things we had to prepare for, and we had to stand on our 2 feet and give a report on our section. And it was BYPU was really Southern Baptist, and they had mission activity and all of that. And I remember that old preacher, Charles Palm. We just thought the world of that old man that was there. And then when Ellison came, at that time, what the pastor said, that was the gospel truth. And that's what you lived. There was no questioning. And I think of some of these other guys. Harry Voigt, very dedicated, he was the song leader. He taught Sunday school. My mother taught the women's adult class for years up there. Dad was more silent. Dad was elected to a lot of positions in the church too. He was not a very outspoken, testimony quick person. He was very well respected, and that I heard nothing but good. And that's one of the reasons I got the store, because of my dad's reputation and the fact he also signed underneath my name. So I have a great deal of that. In Ellison, to him, we was never called Arthur or Art or anything like that. It was always Pastor Ellison. We had to have that. And he was always so well dressed. He always seemed to have a black suit and a white shirt. And that, great influence, these old Christians. I remember old John Carlson. If there's a Bethel Baptist church today, great amount is due to old John Carlson. And he was, when I knew him, he was very stiff-legged. And he'd walk up to the front of the church when he'd come in, and then he'd kind of get turned around and he'd look over the audience like that. And then he'd come to sit down. He always sat on the second row from the front on the edge. So us kids seen that. So we'd go and sit there. And when he got turned around, you seen we were sitting, he'd give us a whack on the back of the hand, with the back of his hand, and away we went. Oh, boy. And he used to preach. But I always remember we were just waiting to a Wednesday night prayer meeting. We were all there. And he'd always close his prayer when he prayed, Lord, keep me faithful to the end. And we just wait for that to come. Lord, keep me faithful to the end. And he was faithful to the end. He was also janitor of the church. And he used to read the report of expenses. And he used to read this. We'd wait for this too. Ye E. Carlson Janitor 5. Like one word. And that was, he was janitor of the church besides substitute preacher. And he got $5 a month for that. And we had BYPU there, and we used to have things on Labor Day where Sister Bay Church would come down, and they'd have races out in the road and all kinds of activity. And they had
foot races?
Foot races, stuff like that, three-legged races and that. We got some pictures of it taken there. And then they used to give you a cone of ice cream. And one cone, only get one cone. And they had some benches nailed on the trees out in the back of the church there. And here I worked, and they try and keep track of all of these kids. And of course, most of them, their effort was to get 2 cones. We weren't very successful in that. But I really, the Sunday school classes and that, all those women, some men too.
How did you meet Phil?
I met Phil because she was teaching Bible school in Wisconsin, really coming out from Bethel College, teaching Bible school, and she was up in Ashland, Wisconsin, and she was, then the people, the pastor up there was Johnson. Johnson was pastor, and he would come to Door County to pick cherries. And she had finished Bible school in his church, and they were going to go to Door County to pick cherries. And
Make some money?
At my dad's orchard.
To make some money?
Make money. You got, I suppose, a nickel a pail. That's what generally what they were paid.
I didn't know your dad had an orchard.
Yeah, 10 acres. Us kids took care of it. And we took care of that, and then she came to take care of Orville Johnson's kids, Reverend Orville Johnson kids. And then they'd stay at my parents' place. Well, I had the store in Bailey's Harbor, but I would come home once in a while. And that's how come I met Phil.
Hmm.
And then she went back to the Twin Cities, and we wrote back and forth. See, Orville Johnson's brother was my roommate at Bethel, so I kind of knew him too.
So you had already been to Bethel for 2 years?
Yeah, I was at Bethel before Phil was.
Okay.
And then after Bethel, I went to the University of Wisconsin.
But you didn't meet her at Bethel?
No, she came afterwards. I didn't meet her at
I
Bethel.
didn't realize that.
Then I went to the University of Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And December 7th, 1941, I was sitting in the Memorial Union reading the Sunday paper. And I noticed a crowd gathering over there. Curiosity got the best of me, and I went over there. Well, what are they listening to here? Well, the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor. Well, that changed the whole world. I finished out the semester. And then I didn't go back for second semester because I knew I'd be going in the Army too. And then I went back on the ore freighters because they hadn't called me up until September. That's when I had to get off and go to the Army.
I see.
So there was, I went back deckhand. No, Dad had an orchard and us kids used to pick the cherry. We were in charge of it. And Dad bought an old Buick, and he sawed off the back end, the whole back window, everything. Took out the seats, and that's what we were supposed to haul cherries with to the cherry plant. So I was the oldest at home. Ken and my oldest 2 brothers, they were gone, so I was driving a load of cherries. I had to go to Sister Bay with the cherries. and I was coming down, and we had no license on this old car, and I was stopped by Paul Roble. Eventually ended up state police. And he stopped me, and all he had was a motorcycle. And I had no license on the car. And then he was questioning me about the fact. He said, "Don't you have anybody older than you at home?" "No, they're all working. I'm the oldest one now at home." And no license. And he started eating cherries that were stacked in behind me, crates of cherries, spitting the pits out in the road. And he said to me, he didn't know what to do with me. So he said, "Well, be careful." That was the penalty.
How old were you?
Oh man, I was young. Could hardly reach, and I had to go through Ellison Bay, and I knew I had to go as fast as I could through Ellison Bay, and then
Get up the hill?
I go up that big hill, and I could never make the hill. But so I had to shift in the hill. And I knew I had to hit her right on the head or I'd be backwards down the hill. And that's the way it was. They were all driving. They're doing, but they're just starting to get licenses and that. On the way home, I was stopped by the other one. Door County, covered whole Door County with two guys on motorcycles. No radios, no nothing.
They
were
both
just-
got you.
Yeah. And he stopped me. They call them sleepy churches because his eyelids drooped. And his name was Merit Churches. He stopped me. Didn't know what to do with me. That was about the same thing. Be careful. Be careful, you know. Giving me a warning.
Were you like 14 or?
Oh, I'll have to figure it out for this. See, we ran the orchard. We were mouthy little kids. We had bums that stayed in the orchard. They slept on the ground. So it was depression time. They didn't want them in the barn because they might set it on fire. So they had to stay out, and they used to cook at their little pots and pans out in the orchard. Merit churches.
Did they have families?
Those cops?
No, the bums in the orchard.
No. No, there didn't seem to be any families.
Did they pick cherries for you?
They picked cherries. That's why they were there. And my mom, they had pick your own too. And it was on the sign. They, no picking cherries on Sunday. They couldn't come to get one to eat off the tree. Dad used to get a kick. He'd be home at times. And he'd say, those cherries across from that Walter Olson store never did bear much. Well, the farmers would come and go to the grocery store. Then they had to go over across the street and check out Dad's cherries. Dad used to get a kick out of that. And he says, let them eat all they want. He said, then I don't have to pick them. But we sprayed and all that. You learned. We were doing risky stuff. We had there was one of those one-cylinder gas engines. They'd kick like a steer. We'd get them things started, and then you got to slip the belt on. And we got any fingers left. And then it would pump jack, see? It was common. Yeah. These kids went on ships. My dad, like 14 years old, and 12, Jim was. And they learned it from the ground up. This was a common thing. But I run a really, I'm so thankful for Bethel Church. There's some of the others. Benny Carlson, who I went to school with, same grade. He got into drinking and that, ruined his life. Ruined his life. He went up to Fort Wayne. And the last I heard of Benny Carlson, Ole Hansen used to drive truck. He says, I'm going to go to Algoma sometime and see Benny. He was living in the dump, had a little shack in the dump. And Ole Hansen said, Walter Hansen, his name was, he said if he sees you, he'll have one thing in mind, borrow money from you. And he couldn't hold a job because as soon as he got paid, even his own cousins, they couldn't do nothing with him. And he died very young. They drunk. Alcohol got the best of him. He left up here and went to Fort Wayne in the same Sunday school. In the same Sunday school. His brother was one, Willie Carlson, who died on Cliff Winniger's boat when that went down in Ostra, in Bailey's Harbor. You look upon all of this as you're thinking back, you know, and it often it molds through your mind. If it wouldn't have been for this, if it wouldn't have been for that, if it wouldn't have been for the fact that I got in a quarrel with Pan American, and I was lead man. I had a good job. And my brother said that the Joe Boyle name was, he was a big wheel at Pan American. Was pretty disgusted that I quit. But they could have given me 10 cents more an hour. What in the world is that? but they said war labor. Well, they should have knew that they had a loophole in there. I was a veteran. You know, when I would ride around on San Francisco on my day off, that people would, I'd be sitting on the train that was, they call it a train, it was streetcars fastened together. Mm-hmm. How come you're not in the military? You know, it's certain strangers. Yeah. Shh, I'd say like that. I'm a draft dodger. Just to irk them, put skin off his nose, that I'm a civilian. At this age, I should be in the military. See, I didn't have a car or anything out there, so I'd get on the streetcar. And I toured the whole San Francisco, Oakland Bay, and all over free. Mm-hmm. Well, I'd have to pay a ticket, and then to get the end of the line, buy another ticket. And I don't know, can't remember how much they were. But I liked the job at Pan Am. And then if you've had the engines off, you'd have the ailerons and the rudders and the elevators and all that off, major overhaul. And then when you were doing something, and at the last minute, the plane was down on the water at the dock, and it would come over the loudspeaker, so, get on that plane immediately. So when you were fixing on those planes, you could very possibly be on that flight, and you better have everything right. There was no question. And 3 eyeballs had to look at it. And that one that went down in Florida Everglades, and reading about it, they still got 3 people. The mechanic, the lead man, and the inspector. You just don't wander around the train, around the plane, and see what you can do. You read the pilot's report, and then an inspector would check everything, and then the mechanic got the job to do it. The lead man had to endorse that, and the inspector comes back and makes the final inspection.
So that's how you ran the store all those years, too?
The what?
The store all those years. That's how you ran the store?
No, there was a lot of guessing.
Yeah.
A lot of guessing. You would order stuff. At first, I took the recommendation of the salesman. Today, we don't have that. But you have it much easier today. All the prices are figured. Everything is done for you. Mm-hmm. I say that to run a store, if you made it through 3rd grade, you can do it. It's so much simpler, so much easier, everything. And I know the grandchildren could come in there and enter right into marking and unpacking the freight. Every box has got everything on it.
Yeah.
Find the invoice, put the sticker on.
Anything else?
Oh boy, you got covered. Maybe some of it got double covered. But it's been an interesting life. I've grown up and seen such enormous changes in everything. From the automobiles in my day.
So what was a meal like at home when you were 10 years old?
We had a lot of stuff grown on the farm. We had all the potatoes we could possibly eat, even when we got married. I used to go to Art Reimer, and you could pick them right off the ground. He ran the machine over, and you pick them up. 2 cents a pound. And we used to store up like squirrels when we first got married. Down where the dryers are, down the basement, was a special place for all that. And we used to buy a lot from the farmers when they come around. One thing that always stuck with me, I went to Frank Gogger with bottled gas. And here I see him having a lot of raspberries. And I know he had a tiny little sign out by Highway F, raspberries. And I says, do you sell them all? No, he says, they just go to waste. I felt so sorry for old Frank Gogger. Here he is, raspberries are a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Just to pick them. I says, I'll make a deal with you. You bring in all the raspberries that you got. and you tell me how much you want for them, and I'll pay you cash on the barrelhead for all the raspberries you can possibly pick. And I says, what I'll do is I'll put a piece of cellophane over and we'll sell them in the store. I'll add a nickel to the cost or something like that. And boy, did he appreciate that. He got rid of all of his raspberries. And people were just anxious to get them. We had a lot of people coming. Raspberries, help out the farmers. And I'd sell us raspberries for them. Nice person, but isn't that pathetic where a person has to do that and sit in the side road and let them go to waste? Nice person, he's dead now. Well,
Thank you.
there's a lot of loose ends